Ambassador Kim Hannah pressed her palm against the cool transparistelle of New Geneva Station's observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before her, each one representing worlds she'd conquered through business deals and corporate takeovers. Now, at 52, she wielded diplomatic power instead of stock options, but the thrill remained the same. The station hummed beneath her feet as massive cargo ships docked in the lower bays. Freighters from Earth carried precious metals and rare earth elements, while sleek alien vessels brought technologies that made her skin crawl. She'd built her fortune on these trades, but tonight felt different. Tonight, her reputation hung in the balance. Behind her, the grand reception hall buzzed with activity. Crystalline chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across polished floors where humans mingled awkwardly with beings from across the galaxy. The air recyclers worked overtime, filtering out the methane signatures of the Gothic delegation and the sulfur compounds that followed the crystalline Zephytes wherever they traveled. But it was the Velkari Dominion that commanded attention. Tonight, their sleek, black ships had arrived 3 days ago, docking with mechanical precision that spoke of advanced artificial intelligence. The creatures themselves stood nearly 8 feet tall, their chitinous exoskeletons gleaming under the artificial lights. 6 arms moved in perfect coordination as they manipulated holographic displays, their compound eyes tracking multiple conversations simultaneously. Ambassador Vector Hannah had greeted their leader earlier, extending her hand in the human custom. The aliens' mandibles had clicked in what their cultural database suggested was amusement. He'd ignored her outstretched hand entirely. Now, 3 hours into the reception, that same condescending attitude filled every interaction. Hannah watched as Vector demonstrated a portable gravity manipulator to a group of fascinated human scientists. The device bent light on itself, creating impossible geometric patterns that made her eyes water. Remarkable technology, breathed Dr. Lee Minho, Earth-led physicist. The applications for space travel alone could revolutionize our civilization. Indeed, Vector chittered, his voice like grinding metal. Perhaps in another 1,000 years, your species might develop the cognitive capacity to understand the underlying principles. Until then, we're happy to provide finished products in exchange for your planet's mineral resources. The casual dismissal stung. Hannah had spent decades proving human superiority in boardrooms across the solar system. She'd outmaneuvered Martian mining cartels, crushed European trade guilds, and built an empire that stretched from Mercury's solar collectors to Pluto's research stations. Yet here, surrounded by beings who treated humans like clever children, she felt powerless. The Velkari delegation moved through the crowd like sharks through water. Their advanced neural interfaces allowed them to communicate instantaneously, sharing thoughts and strategies faster than human speech. When they looked at the assembled humans, their compound eyes showed barely concealed contempt. Your species shows such potential, Vector had said during the formal negotiations earlier. His 6 arms gestured to holographic displays showing galactic trade routes, each one controlled by non-human civilizations. Perhaps one day you'll develop true intelligence. Until then, we're prepared to offer limited partnership agreements. The terms were insulting. Humans would provide raw materials and manual labor, while the Velkari handled all advanced manufacturing and distribution. Earth would become a mining colony, its people reduced to cosmic sharecroppers. Hannah's reflection in the transparistelle showed clenched fists and a rigid jaw. 20 years of corporate warfare had taught her to recognize power plays. But this was different. This was species-level humiliation. The soft sound of footsteps made her turn. Across the reception hall, she spotted movement near the service entrance. Park Soman emerged from a maintenance corridor, her utility uniform a stark contrast to the elegant gowns and formal suits round her. The woman moved efficiently between the guests, checking atmospheric sensors and adjusting environmental controls. With practiced ease, behind her walked a boy who couldn't be more than 12 years old. Park Ji-ho wore clean but simple clothes, his dark hair neatly combed, while the adults around him engaged in loud conversations and political maneuvering. The boy observed everything with quiet intensity. His eyes tracked the alien technologies, studied the diplomatic interactions, absorbed every detail of the complex social dynamics playing out around him. Hannah watched as Ji-ho paused near a Valkyrie demonstration of quantum computing. The aliens were showing off their latest neural processors, devices that could solve complex mathematical problems in microseconds. The boy studied the holographic displays with the same focus she'd once seen in her top. Engineers. An idea began, forming in her mind, cruel, perhaps desperate, certainly. But after 3 days of condescending treatment and insulting offers, she was willing to try anything. The alcohol in her system made the decision easier. Hannah straightened her shoulders, adjusted her ceremonial ambassador's sash, and strode across the reception hall. Conversations paused as she moved through the crowd, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored guests, she called out, her voice carrying across the vast space. The room gradually quieted as all eyes turned toward her. I believe we've talked enough about theoretical intelligence and potential partnerships. Vector's compound eyes focused on her with predatory interest. Indeed, Ambassador, we grow weary of your species' tendency toward empty boasting. Then let's move beyond words, Hannah replied, her voice steady despite the racing of her heart. Care for a demonstration of human cognitive ability? She gestured toward young Ji-ho, who had stopped near his mother's side. The boy looked up at her with those same calm, intelligent eyes that had caught her attention. Young Ji-ho here will play your champion at Valkyrie Mindbridge. The reaction was immediate. The Valkyrie delegation burst into their clicking laughter, a sound like metal insects in a thunderstorm. Other alien species joined in with their own expressions of amusement. Even some humans looked embarrassed by the suggestion. Park So-man stepped forward, her face pale with alarm. Ambassador, please, he's just a child. This isn't appropriate. But Hannah waved her back, her eyes never leaving their Torres compound gaze. Unless, of course, your champions are afraid of losing to a human child. The challenge hung in the air like a live wire. Ji-ho simply nodded, his expression unchanged, as if being thrust into intergalactic diplomatic incidents was a normal part of his evening routine. The grand reception hall transformed as servants wheeled away tables and chairs, creating a circular arena in the center of the polished floor. Alien dignitaries pressed forward, their various breathing apparatus and translation devices humming with anticipation. The crystalline Zephyrites chimed musical notes of excitement, while the methane-breathing Gothic delegation adjusted their environmental suits for a better view. Ambassador Kim Hannah felt her heart hammering against her ribs. What had she done? In her desperation to prove human worth, she'd potentially sacrificed a child's mental health. The Valkyrie Mind Bridge was legendary throughout the galaxy, a cognitive challenge that had broken the minds of seasoned diplomats and military strategists. Park So-man stood frozen near the service entrance, her maintenance tools forgotten in her hands. Her son faced the center of the room with the same calm expression he wore while helping her repair atmospheric processes. Other human staff members began filtering in from various corridors, drawn by whispered communications and the unusual commotion in the normally formal diplomatic space. The ceremonial mind bridge began materializing above the cleared floor. The holographic construct emerged from Valkyrie neural processors, a writhing mass of geometric impossibilities that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Human eyes struggled to process the visual information, causing headaches and nausea among the gathered crowd. The structure twisted and folded through space, creating pathways that led nowhere and everywhere at once. Young Park Ji-ho studied the emerging construct with clinical interest. His head tilted slightly as he tracked the mathematical relationships between the shifting planes, while adults around him winced and looked away from the brain-twisting display. The boy simply observed, as if watching a particularly complex engineering schematic come to life. The Valkyrie champion emerged from their delegation with theatrical flourish. Zekamuth stood merely 9 feet tall, his exoskeleton adorned with neural interface ports that glowed with soft blue light. 6 arms moved in perfect synchronization as he connected to the mind bridge construct, his compound eyes displaying cascading data streams in real time. The creature had dominated cognitive challenges across 12 star systems, reducing brilliant minds to gibbering wreckage. "Behold the neural architecture of true intelligence," Zekamuth announced, his voice resonating through the chamber's translation systems. "This construct represents the pinnacle of Valkyrie cognitive science, developed over millennia of mental evolution." The holographic maze expanded, revealing 7 distinct dimensional planes that intersected at impossible angles. Each plane contained probability cascades that shifted based on quantum uncertainty principles. Navigating the structure required simultaneous processing of multiple reality streams while maintaining coherence across dimensional barriers that would shatter most organic minds. "The rules are elegantly simple, youngling," Zekamuth explained, his tone dripping with condescension. "Navigate the probability maze while maintaining quantum coherence across 7-dimensional planes. Your objective is to reach the convergence point where all realities intersect." Most adult humans collapse mentally within minutes. Their primitive neural structures unable to process the complex calculations required. The champion gestured with 4 of his 6 arms, highlighting different aspects of the construct. "You must account for temporal displacement, quantum entanglement variables, and probability wave functions that exist in constant flux. Each move creates ripple effects across multiple dimensional layers, requiring foresight and computational ability far beyond typical human capacity." Ji-ho listened with the focused attention he usually reserved for his mother's explanations of station maintenance procedures. He asked simple, direct questions about movement mechanics, scoring systems, and victory conditions. His queries were basic but precise, each one designed to understand fundamental principles rather than complex strategies. "How do the dimensional planes interact with each other?" he asked politely. "When you say quantum coherence, do you mean maintaining consistent probability states across all 7 layers simultaneously? Are there mathematical constants that govern the maze's behavior, or is everything based on random probability?" The Valkyrie delegation exchanged amused glances, their mandibles clicking with barely contained laughter. This human child approached their sacred cognitive challenge like a school assignment, reducing millennia of mental tradition to simple homework problems. Station personnel continued riving as word spread through communication networks. Engineers, scientists, maintenance workers, and administrative staff pressed into the reception hall. Many had never seen a mind bridge construct in person, and the holographic display drew fascinated stares despite its eye-watering complexity. Dr. Lee Min-ho pushed through the crowd, his face pale with concern. "Ambassador, this is madness. The neural stress alone could cause permanent damage. We should stop this before it goes too far." But Hannah found herself frozen, watching as her desperate gamble played out in real time. The boy showed no signs of fear or hesitation, only the same methodical curiosity that had caught her attention earlier. "May I have a moment to observe the construct before we begin?" Ji-ho requested politely, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed chamber. The aliens exchanged more amused glances. The human child wanted to study their most complex mental challenge like a puzzle to be solved. Zekamuth gestured magnanimously, with all 6 arms, as if granting a condemned prisoner a final meal. By all means, youngling, take all the time you require. Preparation will not save you from the inevitable mental collapse. But we appreciate thoroughness in our victims. Jiho walks slowly around the holographic construct, his eyes tracking the shifting dimensional planes with mechanical precision. He paused occasionally to observe specific intersections. Noting how probability cascades affected adjacent layers, the crowd watched in fascination as the 12-year-old analyzed the mind bridge with the systematic approach of a seasoned engineer. After several minutes, he returned to the starting position and nodded respectfully to his opponent. "I'm ready to begin." The ceremonial opening commenced with Zekamuth activating his neural interfaces, connecting his consciousness directly to the construct's quantum matrices. Bioluminescent patterns raced across his exoskeleton as his mind synchronized with the holographic maze. Geo made his opening move with deliberate care. A simple probe into the first-dimensional layer, the action caused ripple effects across multiple probability streams, but nothing spectacular or complex. It was the kind of basic move a novice might make, testing the waters before attempting anything ambitious. Zekamuth responded with a devastating combination attack, deploying complex patterns designed to overwhelm inexperienced players. The maneuver created cascading probability storms across 4-dimensional planes simultaneously, generating quantum noise that would normally shatter human concentration. The gathered crowd held its breath as they waited for the inevitable collapse. Instead, Jiho made his second move, and Zekamuth paused. The boy's response wasn't just defensive. It was elegant, precise, and showed understanding of mathematical principles that shouldn't be possible for his species. For the first time in centuries, the Velkari champion felt uncertainty creep into his perfectly ordered mind. The station's chronometer ticked past the 3-hour mark as the impossible continued unfolding in the grand reception hall. What had begun as a diplomatic humiliation was transforming into something that would reshape galactic politics forever. The air recyclers worked overtime, struggling to process the mix of alien atmospheres as more beings crowded into the space. Zekamuth's exoskeleton glistened with moisture that the Velkari rarely displayed. The champion's 6 arms moved frantically across holographic interfaces, his compound eyes flickering with data streams that painted his Karapochi in shifting patterns of blue and gold. For 3 centuries, he had dominated every cognitive challenge the galaxy could offer. Now, a human child was methodically dismantling his strategies with casual efficiency. Young Park Jiho sat cross-legged on the floor, his simple clothes a stark contrast to the advanced technology surrounding him, while the adults around him watched with growing amazement. The boy treated the cosmic-level mental duel like an interesting puzzle. His dark eyes tracked probability cascades across 7-dimensional planes simultaneously, processing quantum variables that should have shattered. "He's developing mind hours ago. This is impossible," whispered Velkara, another member of the Velkari delegation. Her mandibles clicked with nervous energy as she watched her champion struggle. "The human child is processing quantum variables faster than our neural processors. His biological brain shouldn't be capable of such computational complexity." The holographic mind bridge construct had evolved during the extended match, becoming more intricate as both players pushed its boundaries. New dimensional layers materialized as Jiho explored mathematical relationships that even the Velkari had never fully understood. The maze now stretched across 12 planes instead of the traditional 7, each one interconnected through quantum entanglement patterns that hurt to perceive directly. Station personnel pressed against the chamber walls, their faces reflecting the strange light emanating from the construct. Many held recording devices, documenting what might be the most important moment in human history. Others simply stared in wonder as their species' reputation transformed before their eyes. Dr. Lee Minho had been taking readings with his portable scanners for the past hour. The results defied everything he knew about human neurology. His brain activity is off the charts, he whispered to Ambassador Kim Hanna. The neural pathways are firing in patterns I've never seen. It's like watching evolution in real time. Jiho paused in his calculations and looked up from the display, his expression as calm as ever. The gathered crowd leaned forward, expecting some sign of the mental strain that should have overwhelmed him hours ago. Instead, the boy spoke with the patient tone of a teacher explaining basic concepts to confused students. The seventh-dimensional plane follows mathematical constants, not random probability, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed chamber. Once you recognize the underlying pattern, the entire structure becomes predictable. It's actually quite elegant. To demonstrate his point, Jiho reached toward the holographic construct and began manipulating probability streams with his bare hands. The maze responded to his touch, revealing hidden pathways that had remained invisible to Velkari masters. For millennia, he solved 3 supposedly impossible configurations in rapid succession, each solution building upon mathematical principles that exposed deeper truths about the nature of the construct itself. The first solution involved folding dimensional space to create shortcuts through quantum barriers. The second revealed how temporal displacement could be used to access probability states that hadn't yet crystallized into reality. The third demonstrated a technique for maintaining consciousness coherence across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously, something the Velkari believed was theoretically impossible. Your people designed this as a test of cognitive ability, Jiho continued, still manipulating the holographic maze with casual ease. But you built it on assumptions about how intelligence processes information. Human minds don't work the same way as Velkari neural architecture. We see patterns where you see chaos. The implications crashed down on Ambassador Hanna like a collapsing asteroid. Her desperate gamble to save face had revealed something far more significant than she'd imagined. If humans could match Velkari intellect, every trade agreement, territorial boundary, and diplomatic treaty in the galaxy would need immediate renegotiation. The balance of power that had existed for centuries was crumbling in real time. Emergency communication signals began flashing throughout the station as word spread across interstellar networks. The first to arrive were the Zephyrites, their crystalline forms materializing through quantum teleportation rays. Their musical tones filled the chamber as they communicated in harmonic frequencies that human ears could barely detect. Close behind came the Gothic delegation, their methane-breathing forms encased in bulky environmental suits. The insectoid beings moved with mechanical precision, their multifaceted eyes recording every detail of the unprecedented event. They had traveled 3 star systems in the past hour, using their fastest courier ships to witness what their sensors were reporting as impossible. The 12 arrived via dimensional gateways, their energy-based forms shifting between visible and invisible spectrums. As the galaxy's oldest civilization, they claimed to have seen every form of intelligence that could evolve naturally. Yet their harmonic communications betrayed excitement that transcended their usual cosmic detachment. Even the mysterious Ashanti-Send representatives, emerging from stealth fields that had kept them hidden in the station's superstructure. Their pale, ethereal forms rarely interacted with other species, preferring to observe galactic events from the shadows. Now they stood openly among the crowd, their large eyes fixed on the human child who was rewriting their understanding of organic intelligence. The Merkai delegation arrived last, their aquatic forms contained within mobile life support systems. As the galaxy's premier mathematicians and theoretical physicists, They had initially dismissed the reports as sensor errors or propaganda. Seeing the reality with their own specialized visual organs left them speechless in their liquid environments. Zekamath's movements became increasingly erratic as his strategies continued failing. The Velkai champion had deployed every technique in his arsenal, drawing upon centuries of experience and racial memory dating back to his species' first contact with the construct. Nothing worked. The human child anticipated every move, countered every strategy, and revealed flaws in cognitive approaches that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia. How Zekamath finally managed. His voice distorted by stress hormones flooding his system. How does your primitive brain process information faster than our neural networks? Jiho looked up with the same patient expression he'd worn throughout the match. You're thinking too hard, he said simply. Sometimes the best way to solve a complex problem is to stop trying to be clever and just follow the math. The boys' next move sent shockwaves through the assembled alien observers. He didn't just navigate the probability maze or maintain quantum coherence across dimensional planes. He fundamentally altered the construct's architecture, revealing hidden layers of complexity that even its creators hadn't fully understood. The mind bridge responded by evolving into something entirely new. A hybrid structure that combined Velkari quantum principles with human pattern recognition. The result was beautiful, efficient, and terrifying in its implications for the future of galactic civilization. The massive chamber fell silent as Jiho's fingers hovered over the glowing game. But every alien in the room leaned forward, their various eyes, sensors, and breathing apparatus focused on the human boy. The mind bridge pulsed with energy, casting rainbow shadows across the walls. Jiho took a deep breath and made his move. The piece slid across the board with a soft chime, and suddenly the entire game shifted. Colors swirled, patterns emerged, and the aliens gasped in their own languages. How did you see that? Whispered Zekamath, his scaled hands trembling as he stared at the board. But Jiho wasn't done. As more aliens crowded round the gaming table, something unexpected happened. The Torvik delegation, known throughout the galaxy for their mathematical prowess, began murmuring among themselves. Their leader, a tall creature with forearms and crystal-like skin, stepped forward. Young human, the Torvik said, its voice like wind chimes. We have watched your game. Your mind works in ways we do not understand. Perhaps you could help us with something. Jiho looked up from the board, curious. What kind of something? The Torvik activated a holographic projector, and suddenly the air filled with floating numbers and equations. This theorem has puzzled our greatest thinkers for 300 years. We call it the spiral of infinite recursion. Jiho glanced at the swirling mathematical puzzle while keeping one hand on his game piece. His eyes darted back and forth between the equation and the board. Oh, that's actually pretty neat, he said casually. You're trying to solve for the variable that exists in its own solution, right? The Torvak's crystal skin began to glow brighter. Yes, exactly. But how do we? Easy, Jiho interrupted. Reaching up to touch one of the floating numbers, you're thinking about it backwards. Instead of trying to find the variable, let the variable find itself. He twisted the holographic equation, rearranging it with quick finger movements. See. When you flip this part here and carry the 7, there, the equation suddenly collapsed into a simple, elegant solution. The Torvik delegation fell silent, then began chattering excitedly in their musical language. But that was just the beginning. The Ashanti observers, beings of pure energy who appeared as shifting clouds of light, drifted closer. Human child. They spoke in unison, their voices echoing like distant thunder. We too have a puzzle, a philosophical paradox that has divided our people for millennia. Jiho nodded, still focused on his game. Sure, lay it on me. If consciousness creates reality, but reality shapes consciousness. Which comes first, and if neither comes first? How can either exist? Jiho moved another piece on the board, then looked up at the swirling energy beings. That's like asking whether the chicken or the egg came first. You're assuming they're separate things. He gestured to the game board. Look at this game. The rules create the moves. But the moves also create new rules. They're not separate, they're part of the same system. The Ashanti energy clouds began to pulse with different colors, their excitement building. But how can two things be one thing? They're not two things, Jiho said simply. They never were. That's why it's a paradox. You're trying to separate something that was always connected. The light beings fell silent, their forms shifting and changing as they processed this revelation. Meanwhile, the Merkai delegation had been watching quietly. These insectoid creatures, with their compound eyes and multiple arms, were known as the galaxy's greatest architects and spatial engineers, their leader. A being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a jewel beetle clicked. Forward, human. It buzzed. Our challenge is different. We have been trying to design a space station that can exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Our calculations show it's impossible. Jiho glanced at the holographic blueprints the Merkai projected into the air. Complex geometric shapes twisted and folded in ways that hurt to look at. Oh, that's cool, he said, reaching up to rotate one of the structures. But you're still thinking in 3 dimensions and trying to add from more. That's not how it works. His fingers danced through the hologram, reshaping and reforming the impossible architecture. See, if you start with the assumption that all 7 dimensions exist at once, then you design for all of them at the same time. Like this, the space station blueprint suddenly clicked into place, its geometry becoming clear and beautiful. The Merkai's compound eyes widened in amazement. All round the chamber, aliens were pulling out their own devices, presenting their own unsolved problems. The quantum jellies brought their temporal paradoxes, the stone singers shared their harmonic equations, the void walkers presented their dark matter calculations, and one by one, Jiho solved them all, while still playing his game. This is impossible, breathed a Zephyrian diplomat. Its gas-formed body swirling with agitation. No single mind should be able to process this much information. I'm not processing it, Jiho said, making another move on the board. I'm just playing with it. Humans are good at playing. Zekamath stared at the board, then at the solved problems floating around the room, then back at the human boy. Your species, he said slowly. You're not just intelligent. You're something else entirely. Jiho smiled and made his final move. The game piece settled into place with a soft chime. And the mind bridge exploded into cascading light. The ancient game was complete, solved using a rule combination that had been forgotten for centuries. We're human, Jiho said simply. We like puzzles. The news spread faster than light itself across the galaxy. Within hours, every major world knew what had happened. A young human boy had defeated the greatest minds in the universe using nothing. But his brain. Emergency meetings started on 12 different planets. Alien leaders who had ruled for a century suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew about humans. The Zephyrian High Council, known for their perfect memory banks, replayed the match recordings dozens of times. The crystalline beings of Arcturus Prime, masters of logic for 10,000 years, sat in stunned silence. How did we miss this? Whispered Chancellor Vex through his translator device. His 6 eyes blinked in confusion as he watched Jiho's final move again. Their brains, they worked differently than we calculated. On the space station, Ambassador Kim Hanna stood in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Her hands shook slightly as she held her communication pad. She had spent years trying to prove humans deserved respect in the galactic community. Now, in one evening, a 16-year-old boy had done what decades of diplomacy couldn't accomplish. She typed her official recommendation slowly, each word carefully chosen. D.O. Park, citizen of Earth Station 7, formal nomination for Galactic Youth Council membership. Priority classification, immediate acceptance recommended. When she found Jiho to tell him the news, he was back in his maintenance uniform, checking air filtration systems in Corridor 12. Oil stained his hands, and his hair stuck up at odd angles from crawling through ventilation shafts. The Youth Council, he asked, pausing with a wrench in his hand. That sounds important. It's the most important position a young person can hold in our galaxy. Ambassador Kim explained. You'd represent not just Earth, but all of humanity. You'd help make decisions that affect billions of lives. Jiho nodded thoughtfully, then smiled. I'd like that. But right now, Mom needs help with the oxygen recyclers. They've been making weird noises all week. The ambassador watched in amazement, as this boy who had just humbled the galaxy's greatest minds worried about keeping air breathable for 3,000 station residents. Word of Jiho's acceptance spread through the station's communication systems suddenly. Everyone wanted to see the local hero, but when curious aliens and humans went looking for him, they found him deep in the station's mechanical heart, teaching his mother advanced quantum calculations while they repaired a broken gravity generator. The particle flow doesn't follow normal patterns, Jiho explained to his mom, holding a plasma torch steady. If we adjust the containment field by 0.7 degrees, the efficiency increases by 12%. Hawk Soman laughed as she watched her son solve problems that had puzzled the station's senior engineers for months. When did you figure that out? Tuesday, while I was cleaning the dining hall. Jiho said casually. The way the artificial gravity felt uneven reminded me of unstable quantum fields. Meanwhile, in the diplomatic quarter, alien representatives scrambled to contact their home worlds, the proud Centaurians, who had considered humans barely civilized, now demanded full cultural exchange programs. The Robotic Helix Confederation, machines that prided themselves on perfect logic, sent urgent requests for human students to study at their academies. Captain Rex Morrison, the station commander, received 17 different requests for meetings. With Jiho in the first alone, trade delegations, scientific expeditions, and cultural ambassadors all wanted to establish relationships with humanity. Sir, his assistant reported, the Galactic Council is requesting immediate reclassification of human intelligence ratings. They want to upgrade our species' status from developing to advanced within the week. Through the station's corridors, maintenance crews noticed something different. Problems that had existed for months were suddenly getting solved. The teenage boy who had shocked the galaxy was quietly fixing everything from broken recycling units to malfunctioning communication rays. He's in the hydroponics bay, one engineer told another, fixed the nutrient distribution system while explaining stellar physics to the botany students. I heard he redesigned the waste processing system during lunch break, came the reply. Increased efficiency by 30%. In the diplomatic lounge, alien observers gathered around viewing screens, watching Jiho work. They saw him calculate complex engineering solutions in his head while discussing literature with passing students. They watched him explain advanced mathematics to younger children while repairing delicate electronics. The Galactic Council's final assessment arrived as official documentation, human species reclassification approved, status upgraded to exceptional intelligence with immediate effect. Recommend priority engagement protocols for all future interactions. But perhaps the most important moment came late that evening. Ambassador Kim found Jiho in the station's observation lounge, sitting with his mother and watching the stars. Other families had joined them, humans and aliens alike, all talking quietly about the day's incredible events. Ready for tomorrow? She asked Jiho. He smiled, looking out at the vast galaxy that would never see humanity the same way again. Yeah. But first I promised to help fix the communication bay in Section 9. The Arctosian families are having trouble reaching their relatives, as ships from dozens of worlds approached the station, bringing diplomats and scientists eager to establish new relationships with humanity. Jiho Park went back to work, proving once again that humans would never accept the limitations others tried to place on them. The galaxy had finally learned to never underestimate the quiet determination of the human spirit.